It's the 21st century, and it's time for you to break free from the old ideas, the old beliefs, the old shackles that have been holding you back and keeping you bound in misery and failure. It's time to learn the truth about your power and about what's really going on in the world. Everything that you see and experience is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. Nothing more, but nothing less. Learn the truth. Change your life. Change the planet. Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reality Changer Radio. I'm your host, Dickey, and tonight we're going to do something a little different, but it still has to do with manifesting, living life on your terms, and emotional scarring that we get when the programming we've been given as children is different than what our true nature is. I've labeled this a Robin Williams tribute because he was one of my most favorite comedians, and we just received the news. I'm sure this is late news to all of you here that are not living under a rock, but we just received the news that he committed suicide. And what I'd like to do tonight is explore some of the reasons that might be behind that, and some of the things that are similar, if not exactly the same, to the crises that go on in people's lives. Robin Williams, 63, is only a few years older than me. I'm 57. And from what I can gather, Robin's mother was a fashion model, and his dad was a top executive at Ford Motor Company. Now I want to bring you back in time a little bit so that you can understand where Robin was coming from when he was born and the childhood that he went through. The 1950s were all about America rebuilding after World War II. And the attitudes were, you never know what's going to happen. You always need to have Plan B. And World War II was not supposed to have happened because World War I was named the war that ends all wars and that kind of thing. And people were celebrating. People were happy about what was going to happen in the future because they thought it was all over with. And so they started retooling America and changing the direction of resources from a military machine to an industrial superpower. Now, as parents, you have, on the one hand, you have the hard male influence, and I will say hard male influence because in the 50s, any dad had a hard male influence. They were brought up from the 30s dads who were brought up from the farmers. I mean, we're talking about people that knew nothing but hard work. 8 hours a day was a joke for most people, because if you wanted to succeed, the mentality was you had to work harder. So now you have that, and then you have, on the other hand, you have a mother who is a fashion model. And so they have a large house. They make really good money. I don't know how much money, but I'm guessing that they were above middle class. And so as a mom, I'm assuming that as a fashion model, she wasn't around all the time. Dad, I bet dollars to donuts wasn't there most of the time because of his job. And keep in mind back then that it was still the mentality that the male supplied all the money for the household. And so the pressure was still on him regardless. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if at some point Dad saw Mom's job as a hobby. It was just the mentality. It was the way people were. It was the thought processes. And that's how people lived. Robin was fortunate enough to have two people who were very motivated in their work. But this also leaves you very empty as a child. And I understand that Robin was overweight as a child and was picked on and bullied by kids. He was born, I believe he was born in Michigan and then moved to Detroit when he was 5 or 6. Which makes sense because Dad worked for Ford Motor Company. Now, both of these places can be harsh on you. Kids in general can be real monsters if they're not brought up properly and given the proper guidance. Which, back in the day, the proper guidance was you made fun of anything that you didn't understand. And that's just the way people were. As an overweight child myself, I was picked on severely for a few years until I fought back. What it seems like with Robin, it seems as if he used his humor and his quick wit, which if anyone has talked to anybody from Michigan or the Chicago area or the East Coast area, you will find them to be, you might even label them as sarcastic sometimes, but you'll notice that they'll make little comments that are right off and they fit right in, and you're just like, wow, that was quick, So that was to Robin's advantage as far as being a comedian. You have to have a quick wit to be successful. However, when we look at his history of depression, being diagnosed as bipolar besides depression, his use of drugs and alcohol throughout his lifetime, there's a pattern here that if there had been the understanding of life as it is now, if that had been the understanding of life, say in his 20s or 30s, I don't think that we'd be mourning the passing of a great comedian right now. I don't believe so. However, it's only been in the last 15, 20 years that people have started waking up. In fact, you could even say it's only been the last 5 years. I don't know. But for the most part, the generations that were able to program Robin believed wholeheartedly in white America, number one, because that was the time. You didn't get nothing for nothing, and you're lazy if you don't work all the time. You're lazy if you don't want to go to school. You're incredibly stupid and lazy if your father's successful and you don't want to follow in his footsteps. It's not easy growing up like that. And with debilitation such as your weight as a child, now you have even added pressure because not only are you getting pressured at home, whenever they are home, but now you can't even escape that by going to a place that nobody really knows you because they make fun of you and insult you and throw stuff at you there. So, from what I understand, he spent a lot of time at home alone just to avoid all this. This really affects the psyche. Parents, if you're listening to this, understand that single children or children with just one other sibling, hopefully that sibling isn't too far off in age, but understand that they have a hard time adjusting to the world because they have no one but outsiders to bounce their information off of. And so they're so susceptible to programming, it's unbelievable. at least with a sibling, you can throw your ideas at them and they've got similar ideas, and you can create this brain trust within yourselves, and you know that you can just tell secrets and all this. But when you feel as if you have to run away in order to not be sad, that's a horrible way for a child to grow up. And you know mom was busy, you know dad was super busy. And the mentality back then, and it's not the same today, but I know what it was like. I grew up in those years. The mentality back then was to suck it up. Boys never cried. Boys never complained about stuff that we complain about now because we're supposed to complain about it because things just aren't right sometimes. You kept your mouth shut. You kept your eyes forward. And if you didn't do what you were supposed to do in school, they would beat you. And I'm telling you straight up, a lot of people, if you're, if you're younger than 40, then you might be shocked at what I'm telling you right now. But let me tell you something. When I grew up, and when Robin Williams grew up, the schools had the authority to apply what's called corporal punishment. And ask anyone that's gone to Catholic school, they'll tell you the same thing. And that could be anything from a hard steel, and they used hard steel rulers back then, and wooden rulers, across the wrist, to a slap in the face, to being thrown up against a blackboard. Mental cruelty was also in place. The teachers would make fun of you. The teachers would make the other children make fun of you. Have anyone seen the old jokes about the dunce in the class? And there's a stool where the kid sits up front near the teacher with a dunce hat on. Those are not made up stories. This is how we used to live. It was constant a barrage of harassment, physical and mental abuse if you did not fit the mold that people had for you at the time. You were either a rebellious brat that needed their ass whipped, or there was something mentally wrong with you and you had to go to a doctor. Okay? I know these things because I grew up in this era. And so I want you to understand. Now, I was fortunate with the situations I had. Robin, you would say, was fortunate because he became this great star. But now what? Now what? What? Was he really that fortunate? You know, it's like I tell a lot of people, you know, you can push down all your emotions and all your feelings and all your bad times and you can make $1 million every day. But does that really make you happy and fulfilled? Does someone with Robin's background, if that person is happy and fulfilled, do they hang themselves? I don't think so. And we're not talking about, well, you know, he had a fit or anything like this. Though this is a man who is clinically labeled depressed and bipolar from the old school methods of determining if you're depressed and bipolar. But let's not lose sight of the fact that those very things that we're labeled as are part of the reason why we, even if we don't hang ourselves, don't have success in our life, don't have happiness in our life, don't have what we want in our life. Anger, depression, sadness, confusion, frustration, teenagers lashing out. Well, he's just being a teenager. Well, that is only true if you compare his actions against other teenagers who were brought up with old school programming, where the parents don't understand how to talk to someone who's having issues because no one ever talked to them about it. You see, here's a clear case. Poor Robin Williams, you know, everybody, you know, back in the day would say, you know, don't tell me your sad luck story. Everybody's got one. I don't want anyone to have a sad luck story. And when Robin Williams was growing up, you didn't tell anybody. You didn't tell your friends because you would be considered a sissy. And you know, we have changed so much in the last 50 years, and that's good, but it didn't help Robin Williams a bit. Not one bit. And when you get locked into that, if you get to a point in your life where you can use all this external stuff that you can now buy with all your money, and you come from a programming background where you've been programmed to believe that all you need is all that, and that's going to make you happy, then after years and years of it not working, you know, the man was in and out of rehab. Why? Because it wasn't working. He wasn't happy. That's the biggest message here, folks. He just wasn't happy. He was married 3 times. His second wife filed for divorce, irreconcilable differences. Probably because he just wasn't happy and wouldn't give it up. And why? Because no one knew what to do with him. No one knew how to show him the way. You know, you can go to Alcoholics Anonymous and you could do a 12-step program and you could still become another alcoholic. Not touching the drink is not the cure. Being able to be around the drink and not do it. Being able to have a drink and not do it. That's where the true success lies. And so when you go to these rehab clinics that he had back then, you know, they teach you, you know, you have to avoid this and you have to avoid that. So they give you an additional, as if you need it, an additional set of worry parameters. So now, okay, you're rich and famous. You don't want to drink, but you're invited to a Hollywood party where everybody's boozing it up. And all of a sudden, your fear starts kicking in. Okay? Not a positive lifestyle, a fear. Okay? When everyone says, why would he do that? I want you to understand that what he did, the reasons he did it are the same reasons that perhaps you're not happy, perhaps your siblings aren't happy, other people aren't successful, other people get divorced, other people beat people up. It's all the same. It's that old school programming, and again, like I said, it's changed and everything is getting better. But it doesn't change what happened. It could be perfect 100 years from now, but Robin Williams will have still hung himself because of issues that nobody could address. And I guess that's my biggest thing here. We've lost, excuse me for a minute, we have lost, I can't tell you how many countless people to suicide or overdoses in order to achieve happiness. And the ones that can't do it, they've tried everything, drugs, alcohol, women, whatever, and it's just not enough. Because there was nobody in their life at that moment that could point them in the direction that they needed to be pointed in. And they just snap and say, you know what? It really ain't worth it. And my point there is to show all of you the results of another person. Now, you know, normally you don't hear about these people because, you know, you're not in the news, you know, all the time, you know, like a guy like Robin Williams or Angelina Jolie, who gets a double mastectomy because she believes that one day she's going to get cancer, so she may as well cut them both off. These people are in the news all the time. But understand their issues and the cause, because we live in a cause and effect world, the cause of their issues is exactly the same cause of your issues. Exactly the same. The remedy is exactly the same. These emotional things need to be dealt with, and they need to be withdrawn and pulled out of you and a change of habit of lifestyle needs to happen. I've always told my family, you can have it all. And what I mean by that is you can party, you can drink, you can do whatever, and you can still maintain a living lifestyle and be happy. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Back in my day, it was one or the other. If you did all these other things that would be termed as partying, then you were on the road to nowhere. And for the most part, a lot of people were. Because, again, no one was there to show them how to do it correctly. I always say to guys when they're talking about issues with their women, I always say, don't be too stupid to get your own way. And on that one, I mean, well, she wants to go out and party with the girls. Let her go. Because now you can go out and party with the guys. You know, it's that kind of thing. Don't be too stupid to get your own way. But the reality that we have been, as a society, brought up with rules and regulations that go against our nature, they go against the divine nature that God instilled in all of us. And then people sit around and go, well, why is he upset? Why is he crazy? Why did he run into a store and shoot 50 people? He didn't run into a store and shoot 50 people because there is something wrong with the way we sell guns. I mean, look at some of the mass shootings we've had recently around the world. It's not because we sell guns. That's just another external issue that people point at because they don't know what's going on. What's really going on here, and it's the same with Robin Williams and anyone who commits suicide, it's the emotional issues that they have grown up with that have never been removed. And they can be. They can be removed, and this doesn't have to happen. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. The man was only 63. He had at least, and I mean at least, another 20 years. Look at now you take another guy that was born in a harsher situation, George Burns, and he was doing comedy spots in his late 80s. I remember seeing him. He's standing on stage. Oh no, he's sitting. He had a stool, and I was 3 rows away, and he's smoking a cigar. Okay? But his situation was different. He grew up with harsher people. Maybe he was able to deal with it. I don't know his story. But George Burns didn't commit suicide. He died of old age. So when you're looking at people like Robin Williams and you're mourning the loss of a great comedian, and it is sad. It's sad that someone with so much talent, it's sad that anybody, let's face it, it's sad that anybody is that miserable. It's sad that anyone's life is so horrible, no matter what's going on, that they figure they just have to pull the trigger and end it all because ain't nothing going to work. Ain't nothing going to work. And I hope everybody understands, but I just can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And who knows what set him off. When you've got so many issues for so many years, there are little things that might even not seem to be part of the equation that can set you off because of other things that are part of the equation. And then you just go off the deep end. And the bottom line with all of that is to look at life differently. Mourn Robin Williams, mourn the loss of a great comedian, but do yourself a favor and do a bit of waking up. Wake up to the concept that traditional methods of old school programming and traditional methods of old school understanding do not work. If they did, he'd still be alive. If the rehab clinics and all this other stuff worked, he'd still be alive. The real issue here is when you see people in need, you don't refer them to a doctor, you refer them to a specialist who can understand emotional issues and work with them. More and more these days, I refer people to a specialist all the time. I don't do that, but I can recognize when you have those issues. Just tell me about your life and I can tell you what's going on. And then I can refer you to someone who can help you eliminate those emotional blocks and problems. Those types of people are coming out more and more in mainstream therapy. And that's really what is needed here, is more non-mainstream therapy for people that understand the emotional blocks and the damage they can cause, where they come from, and how to remove them. You see, because once you remove these emotional blocks, they're gone. It's over. It's not like, oh, I can't go near a bar because I'm going to have a drink again. No, the reason you drank is over. So instead of worrying about driving by a bar, you'll just drive by a bar. This is what I'm truly telling you here. It's not the fact that he's a drinker or takes drugs or whatever. No. It's not the fact that you have to get him off of the booze or get him off of the drugs. No. No, and no again. The fact is, why is he doing it? Why is anyone doing what they do to either harm themselves or escape day-to-day living? Because there are reasons. It's not just that they're a waste case. It's not just that they're damaged goods. There are reasons. And those reasons are the same reasons for all of us. It's not like Robin Williams had different things that would make him do that nobody else in the world would have. No, it all comes back to the old school programming and the way that everyone believed that you had to seek out spiritual guidance from another person who was no different than you. And if you didn't, well, then there's something wrong with you. That type of behavior, that type of attitude, that type of belief causes things like suicide and mass killings and misunderstandings and arguments and frustration and sadness and depression and ulcers and cancer and tumors and early deaths and miscellaneous aches and pains and hypochondriacs, and the list goes on and on. All of this has the same root causes. It's not like I have a hypochondriac over here, I have a drunk over here, and I have a drug addict over here, and they all need different treatment. No, they don't. No, they don't. And the reason they don't is because the root cause of what's making them do what they do are basically the same. It's emotional issues programmed into them from childhood that they were unable to deal with, and they never got them taken out. And so they're doing the best they can to deal on a day-to-day basis. The best they can. Just like your parents did the best they could, no matter what they did to you. They might have beat you, molested you, whatever. They did the best they could with the programming they had. And that's why we need to start forgiving our programmers. There's a great thing I saw. Forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it alters the future. Okay? But Robin Williams, Freddie Prinze, other people, Elvis Presley, Jimi Hendrix choked on his own vomit. Janis Joplin died. I mean, come on. And look at the time frames here. Look at when they were growing up. Look at the culture of their programmers and the pressure that they had to go through. And look at the difference today. And please, parents, if you're listening, understand, you may have some of those same things, and you may be passing them on to your children. Check yourself at the door on this. If you don't want your child hanging himself at 63, or choking to death on his own vomit, or shooting himself in the head in a back alley, then you need to check yourself and see where your emotional status is on a day-to-day basis. And if you're having issues, and you got to be honest with yourself, because a lot of people have been taught to push them down, which is what causes illnesses, folks. It's dis-ease of the body, and the body reacts to the emotions. If you're pushing them down, then you got to be honest with yourself and say, I'm pushing it down and I have this issue. And you're having those issues, and guess what? You're going to pass them on. Oh, yes, you will. You're going to pass them on. Why? Because you haven't had them dealt with. And you don't mean to bring up your children so that they fail, but you're doing the best you can with the programming you have. Understand that it may not be the best. It's the best you can right now. But unless you're living a happy and successful life, however you see success in your life, however you see happiness in your life, and you're fulfilled from day to day, and you wake up every day just waiting to see what happens today, or controlling everything and saying, hey, you know, I got this covered. Nothing bad's going to happen. Let's all party. If you're not doing that on a day-to-day basis, folks, you got issues. You got issues that need to be dealt with. Because every single issue that you've ever been told, don't worry about it, or don't bring that up at this time, it needs to be brought up right now. Right now. It needs to be brought up and dealt with. Look at the world. You don't think the people responsible for what we see in the world, you don't think those people have issues? Over in the Gaza Strip, over in the Soviet Union, down in South America, over in China. Come on. Everybody, I mean here, seriously, everybody that is causing what looks to be pain on the outside to others has issues. Now do yourself a favor and just for a minute, check the world to see what's going on. Just, run through the news, see all the bad stuff, because they won't tell you the good stuff, because that might make you happy, and then the bad stuff won't happen in your life. But for 5 minutes, just peruse the news and see all the crap that's going on in the world. And then try to tell yourself that the people that are involved don't have issues. Of course they have issues. They have issues that haven't been dealt with, or they wouldn't be pulling the crap they're doing now. And it's not their fault. But we need to stop the madness. We need to stop the madness. It's just like the buck stops here, and, a lot of families, they'll have issues and they'll just cut it off, and just say, nope, it ends here. It ends here. But for people like Robin Williams and Freddie Prinze and Elvis Presley and others, it didn't end until they ended it the only way they knew how. The only way they knew how. I'm telling you, everybody that's listening to this broadcast, understand that there is not only a different way, but a better way. And that this kind of thing doesn't have to happen. And the world is changing, my friends. The world is changing, but we're going to see more and more of this as the world changes, as the world gets older, as time goes by. 100 years from now, this won't be something that you dread. Okay? This won't even happen, for the most part. Okay, the way the world is going right now, it doesn't look right. You hear me and you go, oh, well, what about the Middle East and what about this? What about this? Don't worry about that. Okay, because the more people that are living a happy, successful life are putting that energy out there, the more that the entire energy belt of the world will change. Okay? But it starts with you. It starts with you. You need to help you in order to not pass it on. So forget your shrinks and forget your clinics and all this other stuff. Seek out therapy from people who deal with emotional baggage. And I mean really deal with it. Where they use your energy and they use your emotions to help you pull out all of that crap. And if anybody in the South Bay area of California is listening to me right now, and you need somebody to help you, I got a guy. He's been working with one of my clients for a year now, and the difference is tremendous. And I will email me at realitychanger57@gmail.com, and I will send you his information. And what he's doing with my client is just phenomenal. So here, now you know what to do. Now here's some information about where to go. And could he recommend somebody in a different area? That's very possible. But I know the South Bay area of Southern California, this is the guy I would send you to. Okay? So we're going to wrap it up tonight. God bless Robin Williams. God bless everybody. And let's just take a moment now and reflect on some of the comedy that Robin Williams gave us. You know, Mork and Mindy, Mrs. Doubtfire. He was Teddy Roosevelt in the museum with, what's his name there? Ben Stiller. Okay? Sorry, Ben. Ben Stiller's a riot also. Okay? Countless things. Jumanji. Everything you could possibly imagine. He did voiceovers for Aladdin. He did a ton of work that made us, if nothing else, giggle. Okay? So when you think of Robin Williams, think about how the world is going to get better. It is getting better. And think about how awesome it was. Don't mourn his loss as much as you celebrate his life, because that's really what it was about. And recognize that if somebody in your family or a friend of yours needs help, step up, but be the one that offers different help. Until next time, I'm signing off right now. I love you all. God bless every one of you. And until we meet again, Nanu Nanu.